Hello, my friends. Welcome. My name is Joe. This is the Joe Martino Show. Today, we're going to talk about step parents. My wife comes by, and we want to talk about some things that we see regularly that actually work against the relationship. Some ways that you can change that. If you are a step parent, if you're divorced and you're thinking about getting into another relationship, here are some things to consider. We want to talk about all things blended family for the next 25 minutes or so. Let's kick it off. This is the Joe Martino Show.
You're listening to the Joe Martino Show, a podcast dealing with all things emotional, relational, and human nature. Joe is a licensed counselor in the state of Michigan, specializing in relationship therapy. He is also the author of the book, The Emotionally Secure Couple. All advice offered in this episode is offered for entertainment and educational purposes only. Enjoy the show.
All right, welcome back. I hope that you are having a good day. Erica is with me again, and we are kind of going through a series here. We did some episodes on sex, and those seem to be well received. If you haven't listened to those, you might want to go back and listen to those. Recently, we talked about parents having behaviors that match the behaviors that they want their kids to. That they'll never, it doesn't matter what intensity you use, it doesn't matter what intervention you use, you will rarely see success in helping that child change behaviors if you're engaging in the behaviors that you don't want them to, especially when it comes to interpersonal behaviors. Correct. Today, we're going to talk about something that is, again, another topic that's not popular, at least our answer, and that is step parenting. And one of the realities of modern America is people get divorced and remarried a lot. And people who get married a second time where there are kids involved, the divorce rates are through the roof. And one of the number one reasons is because the step parent doesn't like the biological parent. And there's stuff, I mean, like where
biological
people...
Biological kid, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I meant. The step parent doesn't like the child of the biological parent.
Yes.
So Jim and Mary get divorced. Jim remarries Sue, and Sue doesn't like Jim's kids. My wife's giving me a dirty look because Sue was my last girlfriend before her, which I don't understand. It's been a long time.
Is that on your mind today? You think about Sue?
Actually, you know why? Because Jim Sproat, his wife's name was Sue. And that's why I thought of that. Anyhow, and they get divorced because Sue comes in and she just tries to change Jim's kid. And it's a train wreck. It's a train wreck. One of my favorite sayings is, it's a train wreck met by a plane crash, met by the occasional pedestrian just driving their car into the fire. And it really is that bad. And rarely do people listen. One of the hardest things I think that people miss out on, whether it's, interpersonally between husband and wife, interpersonally between husband and child, or father and child, mother and child, or step parent and stepchild, is you have to make room for people to grow.
Yes.
And so you deal with this a lot more than I do, because
multiple times a week.
Yeah, I hear about it more from you than I do, I think, so from my clients. So jump in here. This is a topic that I know is important to you.
Well, kind of like that last episode we talked about, the importance of you have to model to your kids' behaviors, right? But the other thing is there's modeling in a step-parent relationship, but there's also relationship building. I would argue the same things you did to win over that parent, to marry them, to have them in your life, you have to do for the kid. That means you have to date them. You have to pursue them. You have to be vulnerable with them. You can't come in as the authority figure and you're going to make changes and this is going to be different and you're not going to allow whatever's going on. That doesn't work.
And there's two big mistakes I see people make. One, they come in and like you said, kind of lay down the law and rah, 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 and there's no relationship there to build off of. And, I tell people all the time, if they're not married and they're dating somebody and somebody's already doing that to their kids, you give them a very short window to stop. And if they don't, you break up.
Right.
Because I'm not dating you if you're coming after my kids without a relationship, especially if it's stuff that my kids and I are okay. And this leads to the second big mistake that I see. Let's say, that someone gets remarried and Jim and Sue divorce now, so they get remarried, and Jim marries Amy.
Oh, and so Sue's not marrying Joe.
No.
Oh, good.
And Joe's taken. And Amy knows that Sue's crazy. And Sue's a terrible parent. And let's say that when they got divorced, Jim and Sue worked out 50-50, which in most cases is best for the kid.
Correct.
So Sue's crazy. So Amy, the new wife, tries to overcompensate for what goes on over at the other place. And I'm always like, wait, you can't do that because you're not actually compensating, you're punishing.
Correct.
And you're punishing the kid for something they have zero control over. And that is not how you build a relationship. That's literally how you teach the kid not to trust you. And relationships are built off of love, trust, and respect, period. And so if you want to make it as a blended family, there's some realities you have to consider. One, it takes 10 years for a blended family to feel like a blended family. Or to feel like a family.
I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, that's research that's been relatively consistent. When I was in my master's program, Rayburn, who was a counselor up in Traverse City area here in Michigan, he's the one who introduced me to that research. And it's not changed much. It's 10 years. There's actually a study that says it might even be 15. So you think about this. Somebody marries a person with kids that are 7 and 10. They're adults before they trust you. Because here's the thing. And this is, again, something that is not popular. The divorce was traumatic for the kids.
Yes, and we don't want to recognize
right, and we don't want to admit that because, well, kids are resilient. Well, yeah, they are resilient, but they still went through trauma, and that trauma has an effect. So I'm always kind of shocked when a step parent comes in, or even worse when it's a step dater. But we'll go step parent, right? So they're married, and they're shocked that their step kids don't trust them. Oh, I treat them like they're my own. No, you don't.
Right.
No, you don't. That's one of the best lies we tell ourselves. No, you don't. And what's really weird is when I push on that in the room, the person will get really mad at me. The other parent, I cannot tell you how many times the other parent's like, well, no, not quite. I think you try to treat them like they're your own, which, yeah, I'd support that. Sure, a lot of people, I don't think anybody wakes up and they're like, how can I mess up my stepkids today? I think it's too personal. And it sits on their own trauma. Because the other people that the divorce was traumatic for was the people who went through it. Even if you're like, I'm better off without him in my life. I'm so much better without her in my life. Awesome. It was still traumatic.
Yep.
And so when that stepkid looks at you and doesn't trust you, it scares you. It brings pain. So what are practical steps that you give parents, step parents, on how to build relationship?
Get to know the kid, which it's going to take hours, to be honest, because you built that relationship with their parent, but now you have to do that with them. So spend time with them. Figure out what makes them tick. And like
and
Joe
that's
said,
not just hanging out.
That's not just hanging out. That's having, like, what do you like, buddy? Help me get to know you. Here's what I tell people. It's almost zero discipline and 100% connectivity.
Yeah, let the biological parent discipline.
Yes.
Which I know isn't always possible, right? Right, the biological parent's at work and you're at home with them.
Yeah.
But really, it is almost always possible. First of all, I'm on the record. I don't think the artificial discipline ever works. I think it's false. It's rooted in a false belief. What works with the least amount of cost is relationship. So build the relationship. You talk to them about what they think is wrong. And this does come down to this. We've talked about this in the past. There are people that think, well, if I am going to discipline, I have to do it right now. Which you don't. You could literally just be like,
right.
I'll pick something stupid. You're making dinner, and the stepkid grabs the pasta and throws it across the room after you've told him not to. And he's like, yeah, but on YouTube or TikTok. You don't have to send him to his room right then.
Right.
Like, you can let the biological parent come home and deal with that.
Yes.
And you can still say what you did there is wrong. And clean it up and move on. Right? And we want, I feel like I see parents, they think building the relationship is just, well, they know I care about them because I married their dad, I married their mom, I contribute to the house. No, they don't know that you care about them.
Right.
Because the ex-parent or the ex-spouse, the other biological parent, did those things too. And they still left.
Yep. You ask me how you change it. You give them hugs.
Yes.
If they'll allow you. You don't ever force yourself on a child,
Of course.
right?
That's a good way to go to jail.
Yeah. If they're open to it, you give them hugs. You sit next to them on the couch. You show interest in what they're interested in. You talk to them about how they feel and their emotions. You do fun things with them. You tell them how much you love their dad, because every kid wants their step parent to love their parent.
Or their mom.
Or their mom. I'm the mom, so I'm saying that, right? But you show them, you model to them that you love them and you have their best interest at heart. And that's what's going to give you permission when the hard days come to have the voice and to speak truth into them.
And I think you start out with the expectation that a lot of hard days are coming because expectations drive everything.
Yeah. You go do those days at school that a parent's supposed to be there in an elementary school. And every day that you show up,
Yeah, absolutely.
that you just show up, you earn that love and respect from that kid.
Yes, absolutely.
And that goes miles.
And I think the other thing is that people sometimes lose out the idea on is they have to look at their own trauma,
Yes.
right? You have to look at your own trauma that brought you to this place and how that might be affecting, how the kid's behavior might be affecting your trauma.
Because most likely you're afraid.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's why you use intensity, or that's why you're going after a
You're
certain
trying to
behavior.
control things.
Correct.
And that's one of the ways you change it. Give up control.
And one of the things I tell parents all the time, like I said, I have many students that follow me, and one recently had said to me, so what happens when you can't change the other parent? I said, you can't change the other parent. That's a great statement. You cannot control what happens when they go to that other person's house, and that's scary. Nor can you undo what discipline they do. You can't change it. What you can do is be the best parent you can be when you have them, and I promise you that wins.
Right. And, you know, it's funny you bring that up because I was working with a guy one time whose ex-wife was extremely capricious in how she disciplined. And this is a story not from just my client. The ex-wife confirmed this story to me. Their son was supposed to take the trash down to the curb, right down to the end of the driveway. And he made himself a sandwich because he was going to eat the sandwich on the way while he took the trash can down, on wheels or whatever. Well, that wasn't how he was supposed to do it. So not only did he not get that sandwich, but she fed it to her new husband, and the kid went to bed without supper. Right.
Ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. Well, now the next week, the dad comes back, and he's like, okay, what do I do? Because I'm terrified for my son about what she's doing. Those are the types of stories that are going on. And I told him, I said, all you can do is make sure that the time that you have him, you are consistently living out those behaviors. And I think one of the things that step parents do is they give mixed signals, right? I'll never be your mom. I'll never be your dad. But then they want to bring the hammer like they're their mom or their dad.
Correct.
You don't get both.
They want to change them.
Yeah. Brutal acceptance says, I'm just going to have to accept this kid where he's at. Because you didn't just marry the person that you married. You brought, those kids are part of it. And they didn't ask for their parents to get divorced.
Correct.
They didn't ask for their dad to marry you. They didn't ask for their mom to marry you. You have to chase that down. And just accept that it's going to be hard. Because it isn't the way that it's supposed to be. And look, there's a lot of people when I say this to them, like, yeah, but it's so much better. That's awesome. I'm glad for you. I really am. But just because it's better for you doesn't mean it's better for the kid. Or that they feel that it's better for them.
There was a study, I don't remember what it was at this moment, that talks about, maybe Joe, you're a little more versed in this stuff than I am, that talks about, like, you might not like someone, but they found that they put you in a room with them and you have to spend time with them for a certain period of time that you'll actually begin to like them.
Yeah, it's the proximity study.
The proximity study. Okay. That's the same thing with a step kid. You might not like them. They might not ever be your favorite, to be honest. But the more time we typically spend with someone, the more compassion we tend to have for them over time. And the more
Yes.
we tend to at least understand them. You might not like someone, but you might have more understanding of them if you spend time with them.
Yeah, I just read a book that talked about the more time you talk to a person, the more likely you are to have some level of compassion for them. And let's be honest, that's what we're short on. That, like, it's amazing to me. I on my Facebook, I'm part of a bunch of different groups. It's amazing to me how mean people are to each other that they don't even know, whether it's a cruise ship, a cruise page, or I'm on some investing groups, and people are just like, I want to always be like, guys, just relax. We're taking ourselves too seriously. But the reason they're taking themselves too seriously is because they're afraid, and so they try to control. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing that a step-parent can do, embrace the fear.
Yes.
Embrace the fear. Listen to them. And, again, we're back to that respect thing. They shouldn't disrespect you, but make sure that you're not disrespecting them and the totality of their experience. And I think that's where it gets difficult.
And even down with the discipline, like we talked about, like letting the biological parent discipline. I from previous episodes, hopefully we've gotten across to you. Discipline is guidance. It's teaching. It's a lifestyle. It's not necessarily bringing the hammer down or making sure they get grounded to their room or get their phone taken away or get God only knows what. It's not that. It's teaching. It's correcting. It's saying, hey, let's try that again. You were really disrespectful to my wife. Can you show me what respecting her would look like? And the more you actually say, hey, this is what the behavior I want looks like, the more children pick up on it and they do it, because it's monkey see, monkey do almost at every age.
And one of the things that I think people have to consider is you're going to have to spend a lot of time going after figuring out what the kid was going after with their behavior. Because most of the time, disrespect to the step-parent is involved in a couple things. One, they're not my mom, they're not my dad, and they're trying to act like they are. They're going to leave anyhow, right? Or I just don't like them. One of the things that I ask people, I'll ask, especially if I get teenagers. I'm like, I have a question for you. If your step-parent wasn't your step-parent, they were your neighbor, would you talk to them? Nope, because I don't like who they are. Okay, now the kid, at the very least, we have something we can work with.
Right.
But when the step-parent hears that, they're crushed. Well, how can they not like me? Because you're the one pushing the boundaries of what they find comfortable. Which I get. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But everything in life has consequences.
The other extreme I see, so I actually see just two extremes usually. There's a few that I see who have done it very well. But it's either the parent who comes in and they're going to change them and they're going to be the disciplinarian because they don't like how things have happened. Or the other one is, I'll ask, like a lot of the teens I see, so how is it like with the boyfriend or the step-parent? And they'll say, they ignore me.
Right.
We kind of have this mutual thing where we leave each other alone. That's not any better. Because, to me, maybe this is just my opinion, but you don't get to come into a house and build a relationship with the kid's mom or dad and not try to build a relationship with the kid.
Yes.
Ignoring them and just pretending they're not there isn't any better.
Yeah. So spend the time, right? Go get to know them. Spend the time. Here's the thing. I believe that the vast majority of step-parents want to do it right. They're just not willing to be uncomfortable.
Right.
They're not willing to pay the price of doing it right.
Because when the rejection hits for the first time,
yes,
or they hear something they don't want to hear, the kid gets angry with them, which is real human emotion.
Right.
They feel rejected and insecure and unloved,
yes,
and the parent doesn't know how to work through that on their own.
Yes.
And that's where we have to start.
Yes. And if you're married to somebody or dating someone who's telling you need to spend less time with your kid, you need to stop being in, that person needs to stop being in your life. I tell people that all the time. If we're advocating to send the kid back to mom or dad for less than 50-50, I'm not going to be involved in this process. I will refer you out to a therapist who's comfortable with that. I'm not, because I think that's really crappy behavior.
Because the biggest gift you have is your children, and you only have them for so long to shape them and guide them and nurture them.
Yes.
And there should be little that comes in the way of that.
Days are long, but the years are oh so short. All right, we got to kick this off because we need to go invest in one of our kids' lives and spend some time with her on a college campus tour. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to share it with your friends. If you have questions, write us. Let us know. We're happy to answer those questions. I've done episodes in the past where literally all I did was answer email questions. Happy to do that. If you disagree with us, tell us why. I don't care. That's fine. We're happy to listen. And I've changed my opinion before on things that people have told me. I got to be honest with you, I would struggle to see that happening in this situation, but you never know. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please share with a friend. And hey, give us that rating in your podcast store. Until next time, change possible.